Magic Treehouse, Book Number 23, Twisters on Tuesday, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, Tuesday. Jack opened his eyes. Sunlight streams through his window. Tuesday, he whispered. Morgan's notes had told him and Annie to come back to the Magic Treehouse on Tuesday. He could hardly wait to find out where she was sending them today. Jack scrambled out of bed. He threw on his clothes. He packed his notebook and pencil into his backpack. Then he headed into the hall. Jack bumped into Annie. She was dressed in jeans and t-shirts. Tuesday, they both whispered. Together, they hurried down the stairs. Mom, Dad, we're going out for a few minutes, Jack shouted. Don't you want breakfast first? His dad called from the kitchen. When we got back, said Annie. They rushed out the front door. They ran down the streets into the bright summer sunlight. The warm wind gently shook the trees as Jack and Danny headed into the Frog Creek woods. Soon they came to the tallest tree in the woods. The magic treehouse waited for them in the high branch. Jack and Danny grabbed a rope ladder and climbed up. Inside the shady treehouse, the note from Morgan's was still on the floor. Dear Jack and Danny, Camelot is in trouble. To save the kingdom, please find those 4 special kinds of writings for my library. Something to follow, something to stand, something to learn, something to land. Thank you. Morgan's. Okay, said Jack. We have the first writing, something to follow. He picked up the list from the silver wheel. And we have the second one, said Annie, something to send. She picked up the letter from the Revolutionary War. Now we need a third, said Jack, something to learn. No problem, said Annie. She grabbed a book lying in the corner. I hope we're not going to another war. Jack and Danny looked at the cover. It shows a field of tall green grass. The title was Life on the Prairies. The Prairies? Said Annie. We already went to the prairies the time we met Black Hawk. Yeah, said Jack, remembering their adventures with the Native American boy. He opened the books and turned to the picture of the old-fashioned trains crossing the prairies. Oh, he says, I get it. Trains crossed the prairies after the pioneers came. When we went to the prairies before, Native Americans were only people who lived there. So we must be going the pioneer time, said Annie. I think so, said Jack. He opened the picture that shows the train crossing the prairies. I wish we could go there, he says. The breeze picked up. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2, Sign of Life. Jack opened his eyes. He was wearing pants and suspenders and shirt with the sleeves rolled up. In piece of his backpack there was the leather bag. Annie was wearing the long dress and the sunbonnets. I like my hat, she says. It'll keep the sun off my face. Yeah, except the sun's not shining, said Jack. He and Annie looked out the window. The sky was cloudy. The treehouse has landed in a small grove of trees near the creek. Beyond the trees were the wide open prairies. Green grass and wildflowers swayed in the chilly wind. In the distance, the train puffed across the prairies. Spark of fire came out of its smokestack. Huge cloud of black smoke billowed in the gray sky. Wow, said Jack. He looked at the pictures of the trains in their books and read. After a Civil War, the U.S. government built railroads to link the eastern and western part of the countries. By the 1870s, steam engines carried people across the canyons Paris. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote 1870 trains across Kansas. Let's get going, said Annie. We have to find that special writing for Morgan's. She started down the ladder. Jack picked his things into his leather bag and climbed down after her. When he stepped into the ground, Jack looked toward the west. The train was gone. Only the thin trails of smoke floated across the sky. The train was cool, said Jack. Yeah, and so is Dad, said Annie. She pointed in the other direction. Far away in the distance, a line of covered wagons rolled through the ripping grass. Their white covering billowed in the breeze. Jack pulled out the research book. He found a picture of the wagon train. He read aloud. Wagons were the most common way for families to travel west. They could carry clothes, tools, food, and water. The line of wagons was called a wagon train. The white clothes covered over the wagon also made them look like sailing ships or schooners. For this reason, covered wagons were sometimes called prairie schooners. Jack looked at the wagons again. They did look like a ship sailing across the ripping green sea. He wrote in his notebook, covered wagon equals prairie schooners. Let's get a closer look, said Annie. She took off across the grass. Jack pulled away his things and ran after her. As they ran, the wind began to blow harder. The clouds overhead glowed darker. Wait, Jack finally called to Annie. We'll never catch up to it. They both stopped running. Panting, they watched the wagon trains vanish over the horizon. Jack took a deep breath. What's now? He said. They looked around. All Jack could see was the distant grove of trees with a treehouse. With the trains and wagon trains gone, there were no sign of life anywhere. No Pinner's cabins. No Native American teepees. How can we find a special writing, said Jack. There's nothing out here. Oh yeah, said Annie. What's that? She pointed to the rusty pipe sticking out from the top of the small hill. Screaming from the pipe was a column of black smoke. Oh man, said Jack. That's definitely a sign of life. Chapter 3. One-room schoolhouse. Let's check it out, said Annie. She and Jack walked up to the little hill. At the top, they saw that the rusty pipe was rising out of the wooden roof. They walked around to the other side of the hill. Beneath the wooden roof was a door. The door seemed to open into the hill itself. What is this? Said Annie. Let's find out, said Jack. He studied the research book until he found a black and white photograph. The photograph showed the same hill to the door. Jack read aloud. Since the prairie did not have many trees, woods was hard to find, so pioneers often made their houses out of sawed bricks, which were blocks of earth cut out of the prairies. Sometimes the sand house was dug out of the side of a hill. It was called dugout. Jack pulled out his notebook. He wrote Suck bricks equals blocks of earth. Dugouts equals suck house carved out of hillside. Then Jack read more to Annie. Tornadoes or twisters are command on the Paris. So many dugouts have storm colors. The storm color was like the roof basement below the ground. During the twister, the storm color is the safest place to be. Wow, maybe we'll see the twister, said Annie. I hope not, said Jack. Then he read on. The Pioneer family built this dugout for the home. When they moved, the dugout became the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse had only one room. It also has a storm color beneath it. Jack quickly wrote, some dugout has storm colors. Hey, this is the place, said Annie. Jack looked up from his writing. What place? He asked. We're the best place to find our special writing, something to learn. Learn? Asked Annie. Jack smiled. A school, he says. Annie ran to the wooden door and knocked loudly. A moment later, the door cracked open. The girl peeked out. Her hair was the tight buns as if she were grown up. But she didn't look more than 16 or 17 years old. Hi, I'm Annie, said Annie. This is my brother Jack. The girl opened the door wider. Hello, Jack and Annie, she says. I'm your teacher, Miss Neely. You're the teacher? Said Jack. Miss Neely seemed way too young to be a teacher. Yes, she said, smiling. Come in, you're late. Chapter 4, Reading Lesson. It was warm and dry inside the schoolhouse. Several oil lamps lit the darkness. Class, meet Jack and Danny, the young teacher said. What class? Thought Jack. There were only 3 kids. One beneath sat the small boy and the girl. The boy looked about Annie's age. The girl looked a little younger. On another branch sat the tall boy. He was tough-looking. Welcome to our first day of school, said the young teachers. Today's your very first day, said Annie. Yes, and our first day is this dugout. The family who live here left California the weeks ago. Said Miss Nellie. Jack and Danny peered around the rooms. The wall was made of dirt. The floor was made of wood. It was covered by a worn rug. Miss Nellie's desk was made from the barrel. The small coal stove was near her desk. A crate held water jugs, chalks, and two small blackboards. It's a nice school, Annie said politely. Thank you. We're very grateful for it, said Mrs. Neely. And where do you live? Well, we actually, Jack started. Then he stopped. He wasn't sure what to say. Actually, we don't live around here, Annie says. We're passing through. You must be some wagon trains I saw this morning, Miss Nellie says. Annie nodded. Jack smiled. Good work, Annie, he thought. You can only stay a little while, he says. How exciting for you, said Miss Nellie, heading west on the wagon trains. Where are you going? California, Annie says. California? That's wonderful, isn't it, class? Miss Nellie said to the others. Yes, ma'am, said the 2 younger children. The older boy barely nodded. Have you ever been to school before? Miss Nellie asked Annie. Yes, ma'am, Annie says. We both know how to read and write. Jack's one of the best readers you'll ever met. My, isn't that wonderful, class? said Miss Nellie. Yes, ma'am, said the younger children. The older boy gave Jack a squall. That's exactly the best, and Jack said mostly. I love to read, said Miss Nellie. I'll read any book I can get my hands on. Me too, said Jack. Then perhaps you'd like to start off our first reading lesson for the school year, said Miss Nellie. Sure, said Jack. Sit with Jack then, said Miss Nellie. Then Annie you sit with Kate and her brothers, Will. Will and Kate quickly made the room for Annie's on the bench. But Jack didn't move over for Jack, not even an inch. Jack barely had room to sit. He took the deep breath and sat on the edge of the branch. Miss Nellie handed Jack a book. This is our only reader, she says. This is called the McGraffy Readers. Please read the first 2 lines on the poems on page 50. Oh, sure, ma'am, said Jack. He turned to page 50. He pushed his glasses into place. Then he read aloud. Twinkle, twinkle, little stars, how I wonder what you are. Very good, said Miss Neely. Now pass the reader to Jack. Jack handed the book to Jack. Jack, please read the next 2 lines, said Miss Neely. The older boy cleared his throat and started at the page. Maybe Jack can't read, Will says in the kind voice to Miss Nellie. Jack's face got red. Shut up, Will, he muttered. Oh, said Miss Nellie. She looked confused. Jack felt sorry for Jack. He wanted to give him some help. Barely moving his lips, Jack whispered, up above the wood so high, like the diamond. Jack turned on Jack with an angry look. I didn't need your help, he says. Now, Jack, don't get mad, said Miss Nellie. And Jack, you shouldn't give people the answers. I'm sorry, said Jack. Miss Nellie sighed and pulled out her pocket watch. She was starting to look tired. Why don't you all go outside and have your noon meal, she says. I'll stay in and prepare for the next lesson. Miss Nellie opened the door and shut hot. Annie, Kate, and Will bounced off from their seats and started cheerfully out of the schoolroom. Jack turned to Jack. Hey, sorry for what happened, Jack says. Jack just glared at him and didn't say anything. Come on, Jack, Annie called outside the hut. Kate wants us to eat with them. Jack hurried out the door. He didn't look back at Jack. Chapter 5. Bully. The air outside was sternly still. The dark clouds was hovered in the distance. Storm's coming, said Will. We'll have to eat quickly before it started to rain, said Jack. I said Kate. She and Will sat down on the grass. Annie and Jack sat beside them. Will opened the small burlap sack. He took out 4 lumpy objects. They looked like dark rock. Hey, there's one here for each of us, said Kate. One what? Asked Annie, frowning. Sweet potatoes, said Will. He gave the potato each to Kate, Annie, and Jack. No thanks, said Jack, trying to give his back. We don't want to take your lunch. We have enough. Keep it, said Kate. What do you do with it? Asked Annie, holding up her potatoes. Kate laughed. Just bite, she says, like this. Kate and Will bite into their cold, sweet potatoes as if they were apple. Cold, said Annie. She took a big bite out of her potatoes too, but Jack just held on to it. He didn't quite feel like eating the cold brown potatoes. One of the corner of his eyes, he saw Jack sitting by himself. The big kid didn't seem to have any lunch at all. Jack thought he tried to be friends one more time. "Hey, Jack," he called out. "I'm not hungry. You want my sweet potatoes?" Jack gave Jack a mean look. I could have brought my own lunch if I wanted to eat," he says. "Oh, sure," said Jack. Jack narrowed his eyes. You're making fun again?" he asked. He says, "I'm warning you. Do that one more time and I'll fight you." Jack couldn't believe it. These kids took everything he said the wrong way. Hey, Annie, says. "Leave my brother alone. You're nothing but a bully, Jack." "Annie, stay out of this," said Jack. But Jack just laughed. Then he stood up and walked back into the schoolhouse. Jack felt angry. He hoped they would find the special writing soon so they could leave. Will seemed to have read Jack's mind. "Don't worry about him," Will says to Jack. He's never been to school before." "Oh, he's embarrassed," said Annie. "Why hadn't he been to school?" said Jack. "Because he has to work in the field all the time," said Will. "I heard him tell Miss Neely he walked 5 miles to get here today," Kate says. "So he must have really wanted to come." "Wow," said Annie. "How far did and Will walk?" "Only 2, said Kate. "2 what?" asked Annie. 2 miles, said Kate. 2 miles, Jack repeated. The Perry kid laughed. "It must be lonely living out here," Annie says. Will and Kate nodded again. "Do you live in the sun house?" Jack asked. "We used to," said Will, but it was always dirty. So our pa built us the long cabin. He cut trees near the creek," said Kate. "Then he made the cabin by hand." Before Annie or Jack could ask another question, thunder cracked into the sky. Then rain started to fall. It fast and hard. Everyone jumped up. Come in, Miss Nellie called from the doorway. They ran back inside. The wind slammed the door behind with a bang.